It is with the greatest pleasure I welcome Rod O'Hare of the Fire Chief in Newry here. And I'm minded to say immediately, Rod, that we as a community, we don't always show it, but as a community we owe so very, very much to the Fire Service of Northern Ireland, because you don't only put out fires, you attend road traffic accidents. God help us, you were on the Dublin Road last Saturday, and a few weeks before you were on the Warrenpoint Road, extricating people. Often people die, often you save their lives. That's what you do.
Well, that's the aim, Rowan, and we do really appreciate the fact that the community at large are sort of very supportive of the work we do, because in the end of the day, our goal is to do our best for them. And as you've sort of mentioned already, yes, we've had quite a weekend on our roads, and particularly locally there are a number of families within our locality who are going through a horrendous time, and our sympathies would be with those people at this time. And I suppose one of the things that it throws to mind is, no matter how much we preach the road safety message, and how repetitive it may seem, if every time we mention it, if only one person listens, it's another person we can reach,
Yeah, I talk about it all the time, and I talk about, and obviously we have no idea what happened last weekend. We're not making any judgments whatsoever.
We're just there simply to help.
As a general principle, the more speed, the greater the mess.
Well, that can be the truth, and there's lots of other factors that can become involved. Like, for example, we had a great spell of dry weather there, and after a small fall of rain, the roads can be quite greasy, which changes situations. People can have a blowout in a tyre, tyres that need changed, mechanical fault, something on the road. That's down to another agency to work out for us. We just sort of try to render assistance at the time,
You did it.
But it doesn't leave it any more palatable when you know the news that's going home to some family and what they're going to have to go through.
You did it for a member of my family 10 odd years ago, when the car the family member was travelling in was shunted at speed from behind, and there's a broken neck. Your people and the paramedics who were on the scene had the wisdom to stabilise the child before removing her. The consequence was that although there was a fracture of the vertebra, the column, the spinal column, remained intact.
Yeah.
And you guys did that. Thank you.
Well, look, in the end of the day, I suppose, whenever the guys are out there, it's a task-by-task basis. And unfortunately, and I use the word cautiously, unfortunately, that's knowledge and skill gained through experience as well as training. Much as we like to do the training and be prepared for it, it's actually when you're out there and doing what the guys do that they get that tangible on-the-job experience, which leads them to be more useful, beneficial and helpful when it comes to the next one. It's an ongoing learning process, Rowan. It really is.
What does attendance at a serious road traffic accident in which there are fatalities, often children, what does that do to your men?
Well, I can speak generically for them, but I can speak personally from my own experience. I can remember being at one particular RTC where there was, it was quite horrific. Several members of the one family had lost their lives, and there was a child involved, and the child, we had to search to find the child. And everybody gets on very professionally, very methodically, job done. It's only after the heat of the engagement, where we're very focused on what we do, that you tend to think about it. And I can remember my wife getting up the next morning and wondering where I was, or had I made it home yet. When she went into the room, I was in bed with our wee fella, because the child reminded me in so many ways, age, physical build, of my young fella. When I come home, I went in to check on him, lay down on the bed beside him, and so it does have an impact on you. However, it's nice, even though when you can't be of help in the physical manner that you would like to be, that you can render some dignity and respect to the situation, which the guys always do, which they always do.
Rod, when did you personally make the decision you wanted to have a life of service as a fire officer?
God, you know, I suppose it's...
What were the circumstances that led you to it?
I suppose I had worked at many other things previous to it, but had never found the job satisfaction that I'd seemed to be craving. So as a result, whilst I would never really have been out of work, I would have been transient. I would have been in a job and then moved to another job. And when I found the fire service here in Newry, it just seemed to address all the things that I had been looking for. And it's strange because it's one of those jobs, I suppose, where until you actually, irrespective of the training, until you're actually called to deliver on that training, that you don't know how you're going to handle it. And I have to say, I felt, as do many of the guys, it's incredibly rewarding to be able to offer people the skill and assistance that you acquire over time in their hour of need. And really it is in their hour of need, you know.
You've lost colleagues over the years, and I suppose the zenith of firefighting courage was 9/11 in New York, your colleagues in New York. No different to you guys here in Ireland, going into buildings, racing in while other people were racing out.
Yeah, I suppose the one difference really that you face, particularly in the United States, is the fact that it's the way they build their buildings. You know, it's not unusual there for them to have 80-storey buildings, you know, which in itself is an absolute issue. We're quite graced in this part of the world that we like to be close to the ground, you know. So we don't face that as an issue. But yes, that was a horrendous loss. Again, against something that it's very hard to prepare for or legislate against. And it was a circumstance that was very unique to that situation, and hope never to be repeated again, you know.
Your manpower, is it too much to say you're constantly looking out for the right kind of man or woman to come and join you?
Oh, that's true. And unfortunately, like everywhere else, we face the problems now of budgetary constraints through no fault of our own or anyone else's. It's just the world of austerity that we tend to live in. However, I have to say, you know, our manning is fine at the minute, and it's not on a regular basis that we recruit, simply because when we do recruit, we get a great response to it. And we have taken in a number of recruits courses, the last one passing out there possibly 4 months ago. So our manning is kind of there. But yes, it definitely does take a certain type of person, I would say, to fill the criteria.
I must say, and I tell you this now with my tongue slightly on my cheek, once upon a time when I hit 55, I applied.
I remember.
And did everything right. Did everything absolutely right.
Yeah.
To the extent that I went back on several occasions afterwards to help fellas interview and all the rest of it. But I wasn't even given the medical. I was turned down on the basis of my age.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't happen now.
No, it wouldn't really, you know, but the thing of it is, and this is what you have to bear in mind, you know, when you had possibly, and I can remember the occasion you're speaking about, there were over 100 applicants for 3 positions.
Yeah.
You know, it's incredibly difficult.
But I was certainly told by the man at the top that it was my age that stopped me.
Well, you know, that's
and he's dead and gone now.
That's right.
He's dead and gone.
I know who you're talking about, yeah, indeed.
We think of him very gently and warmly.
Yeah.
And we're ending now, but we haven't even talked about what we wanted to talk about. But that's for another day.
Yep,
Because we'll end on a funny note. There was the famous time when the same man, the boss in those days, the lads had dealt with a house fire up on Chapel Street, I think it might have been. And they were in having a cup of tea, being thanked by the people in the house. And the word is that the machine was outside the door and the keys were in it. So the same man got in the machine, just backed it around the corner, and then went into the house and caused a little consternation. But it was funny. But that was the nature of the person we're talking about, and the nature. You know, you have a laugh there. You have a good camaraderie.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about.
Yeah, and we're very conscious of trying to get the message out to everyone, to let them know, particularly summer times now, we're going to be camping, we're going to be driving, we're going to be doing everything, to take that extra bit of care.
Hold that thought, and I'm going to extend an invitation, because what we've talked about has been hugely important, and it might contribute to saving one life, just one. But maybe Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday next week you would return to me.
Certainly, if we're
And
available, we'll do that.
We'll make the contact with you and plan to talk about summer safety.
That'll do.
But in the meantime, what we've done here has been good, has been worthwhile, and we wish you well. I simply want to say again, thank you on behalf of my family, my wider family of community that I know, to the firefighters of Northern Ireland for the courageous people you are and what you do.
Well, I'll certainly pass that on to them.
Also the thoughtful, the kindly people, because your heart is there as well as your musculature, and your mind is there. Well done, and thank you very much indeed.
I'll certainly pass it on.
We'll simply sign off now. Will you stay with me as we say farewell to the people?